Hi everyone and welcome to French Watch Collector. Today on the bench we see we have this beautiful Omega, very vintage watch you see, and there is a lot of issue in this watch. I will tell you why and I will tell you exactly what happened to this watch. But yeah, it's a great watch. You see kind of a vintage look on this watch, very heavy, a very heavy watch. It's not full gold, it's gold plated. But the weight on the watch, and you see the watch is not working. We see the second which is moving when I move it, like you see when I rock it left and right. We see the second hand which is moving. Just checking the date there. Looks like it's working. But obviously we cannot put this watch on a time grapher to check if it run bad or well, because it doesn't run at all. Yeah. I'm just checking there if we have a change of time, and see if we have a change date as well at midnight. And as well, if you did not subscribe to the channel, because actually there is a lot of people which are watching this video and which are not subscribed to the channel, you can click on a button there, on a subscribe button, and yeah, that will help a lot the channel. And you see the date just changed around 5 o'clock, so that's way too late. Like it should change around midnight normally. So yes, there is definitely something wrong with this watch. Just checking there if we can change as well a quick say change on a day, but it doesn't change. Just gonna remove the bracelet there. Again, as well, this bracelet, you see, like you can see through the gold plating, we can start to see some steel. But the owner of this watch didn't want to replate this watch. It's possible. But yeah, we just keep it as it is. But obviously, you see the balance there. Everything looks the balance stuff there is not broken. That's a good news. And basically, what we're gonna do, like we do every time, we're gonna disassemble everything. Just check each single part and see if we see some problems. And we're gonna put it back together, and hopefully, it will work again, because obviously now it's not working. So we see at the end what we can get as a result. But yeah, this is very strange. So just gonna remove first a couple of parts there. We have some clasps that keep the caliber in position inside the case. There we go. Just gonna remove there the winding stem here. Just pushing on this button, this is there with my tweezer. And we should be able to remove the caliber with the dial and the hands. Beautiful die as well. You see, we have a bit of corrosion on a dial. Actually, it looks quite cool on his watch. The caliber is in good condition. What can I see first when there is not too much rust on the caliber there? Just place back. You see the winding stem here, because we'll be able to align. I'm just gonna align. You see the hour and minute hand on the second, because the second obviously is not moving. And this will be easier. This will be easier to remove the hand. You go just using, you see, using a pair of lever there just to lift the hand on the watch. Perfect. Just gonna put, you see, the hand, and we put later as well the die on this, in this little box there, just to make sure we keep them safe. We don't damage it during disassembly. I'm just gonna release, you see there, with the 2 screws here. Release the dials. There we go. Beautiful die. I'm just gonna put it in this little box as I just said. And you will see the dial will be like kind of levitated in this box. You will not touch anything on in this box, so that's a good news. And we start the disassembly. Gonna start by the automatic rotor there and a couple of parts from the automatic winding. And you will see already straight away from the beginning, there is a small issue, but a big issue in this watch that you need to, I will address a bit later on. And just removing, you see there, the automatic winding rotor there. We have a wheel here, which is connected obviously to this rotor that I just removed. And look at the play there on this part. Wow, that is huge. So there is a brass bush around, but it's fully round. Like it's like too much play on this part. So we're gonna adjust that when we reassemble the watch. Obviously, this is not the issue because the watch was not running, because it's on automatic winding. But obviously, at one point, if you have too much wear on the parts, the part will start to touch each other. Obviously, at one point, they can break as well. And on automatic winding, obviously, the automatic winding, if there is too much friction between the parts, it will stop running. Like, it will not wind automatically, let's say, nicely. So yeah, it will not work correctly. So we need to adjust that. So we are disassembling right now all the date and day, because obviously on this watch, sorry, you have two, the date and day. The complication. Just gonna remove all this part there. You can see underneath we have some plastic part there. Just removing the hour wheel. Just removing, you see the date ring here next to the day ring. Yeah, I'm just gonna remove, like you see, all these wheels, the cannon pinion there, which is on this center wheel here, and you see you have another part there with a piece of plastic on this caliber. And actually on this caliber, we see at the beginning, we saw it written, we see it on the other side, it's 1022. That's a caliber type from Omega, and it's not my favorite type of caliber from Omega. Obviously, this type of caliber, they started like just after the quartz crisis at the end of the 70s, let's say, and obviously, you know, like obviously it's Psycho that started the quartz calibers, and obviously all the mechanical watch were much easier with the quartz caliber, much cheaper. So all the Swiss industries that was on the mechanical watch, like for example Omega, they had to bring the cost down. And you see it on these calibers, actually the first families of caliber or mechanical caliber that came after the quartz crisis. And yeah, you see the calibers, they bring a lot of cost down. Like in terms of quality, obviously they are a bit less robust than what it was before that. For example, if you see like all the 300, like the 300 family on caliber, they are great calibers. And starting like in this 1000, 1001 and all these families of caliber, yeah, it's not exactly the same. And you see a lot of play again on this watch. Like yeah, that's way too much here. And yeah, you see this caliber are a bit more fragile, a bit more complex. A lot of, you see some plastic parts on it that start to appear. Obviously, was not the case before. So yeah, they had to bring the cost down, the production cost on this watch, obviously, because they had to align which was in front of them. That was obviously very different, the quartz watches. But yeah, at the time they were competing against each other, so they had to bring all the costs down. And yeah, we see a lot of choices to do on this caliber at the time during the design. Yeah, to have a cheaper, let's say, caliber than even if it's a very good quality of still Omega. Yeah, they are great caliber. But yeah, it was during this era. It was the same thing. Obviously, a lot of companies that disappeared during this era, and they could not survive. Omega survived, and that's yeah, that's a very good news, because actually they make very good watches. And yeah, but at the time they had to do some decision as well, just to make sure they could survive. Okay, so you see we have a screw there underneath that's going on a spring. Quite tricky on this caliber as well. Just to you see when you need to put it back as well. Very over engineer. I don't know if it's a cost solution to do this, but yeah, it's much easier than what you see normally on a click system there, and yeah, around the barrel system, which is very different on other caliber. And here you see you will have a second pinion, and I think a lot of issue is coming from the second pinion there. it looks strange. It looks very low, and looks like it doesn't touch the train of wheel, which is weird. I'm just checking there if there is not too much play there on the wheels from the train of wheel. I'm just gonna remove there the bridge, and actually on this pinion there, on this second pinion, which is right in the center, you will see I will remove. You can see there is another plastic part there, which is for the hack, to stop the second when you pull the crown. So this is this plastic part that does the job. Just removing, you see all the train of wheel there, and it's very, very stuck. This wow, that was very tight inside, and I think this is not the right part on his watch. I just put it back, and yes, the height, it doesn't touch the train of wheel, so obviously you could not drive the second pinion, and yeah, it was a lot of friction in this part. And like I said, in this family there is a lot of different caliber. Obviously some sample caliber, some caliber with date and day, some caliber only with the day, different type of caliber. And actually this second pinion, there is depending on the caliber, the heights are not the same. Like it's maybe even less than a millimeter, obviously because it's very small on this type of caliber. Like a lot of difference, like a tiny tenths of a millimeter can do a lot of this caliber. And yeah, I just look on internet, and actually there is different type of second pinion. And the person, and actually I knew after that the watch, that the guy that sent me this watch tried to service this watch or fix this watch, and he did not use the right parts on his caliber. And actually, yeah, it's quite tricky to know, like, because if you see the parts on internet, it looks like exactly the same, but there is just a couple of tenths of a millimeter that are out, and they cannot engage in a train of wheel. So you will see later I managed to find the correct parts, and we will see the result at the end. Okay, I'm just disassembling there the barrel assembly. Just removing, you see, the barrel arbor there. We're just going to remove now the mainspring, which is, yeah, the spring where you have all the power from the watch. Perfect. I'm just going to disassemble now the automatic winding. So that's the sub parts of the mechanism. That just for the automatic winding, you see there, to transmit the information from the rotor to the barrel. Okay, I'm just taking the part here. Just a bridge on top, and you will see underneath different wheels. Obviously some reversing wheels, just to make sure the automatic winding can wind in both directions if the rotor is turning left to right or right to left. And we have some intermediate wheel there. And you see it's quite a lot of parts actually on the bench there. What we're gonna do now, we're gonna do a pre-cleaning on the parts. I'm just gonna pre-clean like the bridges on the watch and the main plate. Just gonna clean just to remove like any dirt, any dried up oil or grease on these parts. Obviously, it's not to fully clean the parts. It's just to remove like the biggest part of it. And obviously, after you will see, we put all the parts in a cleaning machine, and we finish to clean the parts fully. But let's just do it with a brush. I'm just gonna blow them just to dry them up a tiny bit there. You see, just to remove the fluid around these parts. Just gonna polish, you see there, the pivot point on the train of wheel of the different pivot point there. Just gonna do that on all the wheels of the train of wheel. And now we're gonna put all these parts, and you'll see we saw on the bench, there's quite a lot of parts actually in these tiny baskets. So starting with the small parts there in this very small basket there, just putting the jewels, you see some springs, some tiny parts, just to make sure I don't lose them in the bigger baskets. And I'm gonna put all the other parts in this basket, just keeping them by families. Putting back the balance wheel you see there on the main plate. And we have all the parts going in this basket there. You see on the bench as well, all the plastic parts. I don't clean them in a machine because I don't want to damage the plastic. Just gonna put them in a cleaning solution first, then we do 2 rinsing and we finish by drying the parts, and all the parts will be ready to be cleaned. So just to tell you as well that I have a Patreon site. Here is my Patreon, which are supporting me for my channel. Thank you so much, guys, for supporting my channel. You can go as well on the link down below for my Patreon. It will help a lot because it takes a lot of time actually to do this video for you guys. So it will help to support my channel. I put as well some video on my Patreon, which are just for my Patreon as well. Some exclusivity from on my bench, what's going on for the watch which are coming. And as well, I have some very nice stickers which are coming to all my Patreon. After 3 months of on my Patreon, you will get a nice stickers with my logo, and just as a thank you for my Patreon. So if you want to go there, you will find the link down below in the description for my Patreon page. And thank you so much, guys, for already subscribing me on my Patreon. And if you want to help my channel, that's very nice, and thank you so much in advance. Okay, so now we're just gonna reassemble, you see, the watch, starting by the barrel assembly. I just put a brand new mainspring because I didn't know the old one. Obviously, we saw already a lot of issue on this watch, so I didn't want to take some. I didn't know the amplitude of the watch because it was not running when it came. So I decided just to put a brand new mainspring just to be sure the mainspring obviously is correct. Just reassemble now. You see the barrel arbor there. I'm just gonna close with my Orotech tool there, and just using my tweezer there. Perfect. I'm gonna put all the parts you see like in this little bottle there, just to do what we call an epilem treatment on the parts. These parts we'll see later. We're gonna put some oil and grease on some of those parts, and this treatment will help for the oil to be retained on the surface. The oil will not spread on the surface, so that's where we use this epilem treatment on the parts. We're gonna blow the parts, you see, remove and dry the epilem on these parts. We're going to remove the epilem as well on the pivot point you see there, or on the pallet fork and the escape wheel. Right now, I'm just removing, you see, on one pivot. I'm going to do that on both sides. Same thing as well on the pallet fork. We're just going to remove as well the epilem treatment on the pivot point because we don't need on a pivot point to have a epilem treatment. But obviously, the rest of the area, we're going to put the oil and grease. It need to be treated there. And after that, we're going to move, you see, on the jewels that we see just underneath. We're going to put a drop of oil right in the center there of these jewels. And and again, the epilem will help for this drop of oil just to be, you see, it doesn't spread on the surface. Just going to put what we call the chaton back on top there. And now we have a dry, nice drop of oil right in the center. Perfect. Just going to do the same thing as well on the other jewel. Just put back the chaton back on top there. And we have a nice drop of oil right in the center there. And now we can put this jewel back on a balance assembly on a shock system there. You see that's a spring on top of it, which is acting as a shock just to make sure we don't, if you have a shock on a watch, the balance staff, the balance pivot point of the balance assembly doesn't break. It's like a spring, if you want, like a spring on your car. It will move up and down, and obviously will absorb the shock on your balance assembly. And now I'm just checking, you see there, if everything is moving, if the balance is rotating on a spring, and it looks good. So we can move on and start to oil. You see, I forgot to oil the pivot point there of the barrel assembly that we just put together with a new mainspring inside. And this is a brand new, you see it's a tiny bit difference on the second pivot point there. I'm just gonna put right in the center. That's why I just put a drop of oil there, just to make sure the friction is reduced. I'm just gonna put now, you see this spring that will come on top. There is a part that is on the pivot point there, and yeah, it doesn't go right on. So I will have to bend it a tiny bit on this spring. That's not normal. Like probably the previous owner of this watch just bended this spring there. So I'm just gonna put it back on position very nicely. See, I'm just gonna press ever so slightly because I don't want to break the part. Just to give it the original shape. Because you need to come, you see, you have a shoulder on a second pivot point where this spring need to come on it. And actually this spring will add a tiny bit of friction on his pivot point, and that's why you want your second hand to be smooth when you will see the second moving very smoothly. Because if you don't have a tiny bit of friction, the second hand will move like not normally. Like, so that's when you have a tiny bit of friction there just to have a smooth second hand. And that's what this spring there on this type of caliber is doing. I'm putting back the wheel you see there from the train of wheel. We put back the hack as well. This is these plastic parts that will come and be connected as well to the keyless work on the other side. You see I'm aligning like all the wheels on the pivot point there on the jewels. Perfect. And I just put there the barrel assembly that we just put together. And now you see the 1022, like I said at the beginning, which is a type of caliber. And you see this long number as well on the round with the logo, the Omega logo there, which is the serial number actually of this caliber. And with Omega, which is quite nice, actually you go online, you have a serial number, and you can find, if you look at a website online, you will just type like from Omega, Omega serial number year, you will know the year where this watch was assembled, was produced. Just with the first couple of number of the serial number, you will know the year from this watch. And this is quite nice from Omega to know. Obviously, it's very nice to know. For example, you have Rolex, will be the same. If it's the serial number which is on the case, not on the caliber, you will know which year your Rolex was made. There we go. From Omega, you will know from the serial number which is on the caliber there. As you just saw on this 1022 caliber. Yeah, that's a nice information to have from your Omega. Okay, there I'm just put back, you see this wheel there with the screw, which is very long, and that will go on this spring underneath. And you see you need to have this screw there that come to the correct side of this spring there. And you see, to put it, you'll have to put it in a special position just to make sure it engage directly and on the correct side of the spring underneath there. So this is quite tricky to put in position. So I hope this time, and you see now, you see the spring is doing this job on his part, so that's perfect. Obviously I change as well. You will see I change where we change because it was a lot of play on this part there. So we change the bush, you see. See, wow, a lot of play up and down here. That's too much. That's too much there on the play. So we'll have to adjust that because we want to, again, like it was at the beginning, if there is too much play between the parts at one point, you see like the barrel, there was too much. So I'm just using there my stacking set, and I'm gonna push, you see, just tiny, like a tenth of a millimeter, bring it down And this tool is specially made for that. You will have like a very, and you see you have a tiny play, but not too much, because if you don't have enough play, it means that the parts are grabbing each other, so you will have some friction, and the watch will not, the part will not turn. So you want a tiny bit of play, but if you have too much play, for example, in this case, the ball assembly can get to an angle and can touch the wheels from the train of wheel, and this will ruin the amplitude from the watch and the timekeeping of the watch. So that's why you want to have a small play, but not too much. Okay, I'm just putting back, you see now, the rest of the wheel here. Obviously, we're gonna oil all the parts which rub against each other, just to make sure that there is no friction, obviously, and that the parts don't wear between each other, because obviously it's metal against metal. So yeah, if you don't put any oil or grease, it will get damaged at one point. And that's why every 5, 8, 7, 10 years you need to send your watch for service, because obviously the oil will evaporate at one point, it will disappear. And like basically it's the same thing on your car. If you don't change the oil of your car, the oil from your engine will become, will have some metal bit in it, will become thicker, and it will not do this job properly, and it will start to wear the parts. So that's why on a mechanical watch it's exactly the same thing. You just want to do a nice service with a regular interval, just to make sure the parts don't get damaged, because the oil, it cannot stay there forever. The oil, it will the oil or the grease, it will go away, it will evaporate, and yeah, the parts after will get damaged, because obviously two parts which are rotating metal against metal, yeah, it will get some damage. And you see there, I'm just putting some grease on a keyless work, because you will see a lot of friction between these parts, metal against metal. So that's why we put some grease instead of oil, because obviously the grease is thicker than the oil. And now I'm gonna put back all the parts on the keyless work. Again, the keyless work, you see the parts when you're gonna put on the crown, and you will see this one. You have 3 positions, which is the first position when you don't pull the crown, where you just leave it in the first position. You can wind on most of the watch. That's why you can wind manually if you need your automatic watch in this case. The second position will be a quick set date, so you can adjust the date quickly. And the third position will be obviously to change the time, to adjust the time on your watch. So yeah, this is and that's all these parts I'm gonna put right now, with all these spring you see, for example, on this part there. Is all these parts is just to give this information when you pull on the crown, just to wind, to do a quick set date, or to change the time on your watch. This is all these parts what they are doing. Just put back, you see there, setting lever spring there. And we see again, I'm just putting some greased, obviously. Again, you have another spring that come on top here. Again, it's quite a lot of parts on this caliber, a very different design from what you can see on other watch. And you see there, when I pull on the crown, yeah, you see the 3 position there. Perfect. That looks like it's working perfectly. So we can carry on, just removing first the excess of grease on this caliber. Just make sure it stay clean. Just gonna put there the pallet fork in position. Just aligning there, you see on the jewel. Just gonna put the bridge on top, and we are gonna align the jewel as well on top. And we can put now the screws, just to make sure we secure it in position, and it doesn't move anymore. So yeah, we can wind the watch. Now we put the pallet fork. We can wind, and we will wind, you see, manually the watch, and we put all the information in and all the strength inside the mainspring, inside the barrel. And you see, yeah, it's clicking there, so it means the power is coming to the pallet fork. Gonna oil as well the pallet fork under the microscope after that. See, I just put a drop of oil there on the existing jewels of the pallet fork. And you see we're gonna oil each teeth there of the escape wheel. Just gonna do that a couple of times. Here we go. And we see we're just gonna, under the microscope, just put a drop of oil there on the exiting jewel. Perfect. Just gonna move it 5 times normally. And we're gonna do that until all is, and that's why we did as well the epilam treatment on this part, on the escape and the pallet fork, just to make sure like the oil stay in position on this teeth and on this jewel. And after that, under the microscope as well, we're gonna oil all the jewel from the train of wheel, the barrel pivot point, all the jewel as well from this caliber. And again, this oil is just to make sure we reduce the friction between the parts and we don't damage the wear on the part. You see now I'm putting the oils on the jewels here. So we put different type of oil. We'll have some different type of viscosity on oil depending on the speed of rotation on these parts. Put some medium viscosity, some very low viscosity type of oil. You see there, just putting like you see on this part. Perfect. Obviously we do that on both sides, on the dial side and on the balance side of the watch. And now that the watch is ready, we're just going to put, you see the pallet fork in position. And we can put finally the balance assembly and see if the caliber want to start again or no. Because at the beginning it was not running. Wow, it went straight away. It just started. Like you see, I did not have to put it. I put it just very quickly, and it just started. Like that's crazy. So that's the good news. We have a running caliber again. So basically, we have a caliber that can give the time. Still missing a couple of parts. Notably on this side, we can see still missing the pivot, like the minute wheel. Still missing the cannon pinion there. Gonna put in position. And obviously after that, we're gonna put back all the complication on this caliber. So you have different type of complication. Obviously you have the date and the day on this one. And as well, the automatic winding, which is a complication. So putting the plastic part you see there in position. Just keep it in as well with a screw. Just put the hour wheel back on top. We have there's a jumper. We see we have the jumper that's for the date and the day as well. Very tricky to put in position because yeah, you see I'm using with my tweezer and my plastic probe there just to make sure it doesn't jump the spring. Very, very tricky, and you need to go very carefully on this part there. There we go. Until I put the plate on top, but before that, it can jump, so you need to be very, very careful. I just need to put now the date disc there. And you see I keep the spring in position just to make sure it doesn't jump, because if it jumps, you will spend if it goes, it's very small. If it goes far, you will spend like a lot of time on your knee just to look for this spring there. Okay, now I can put the bridge back on top. Just align it on a center wheel there on our wheel. Perfect. And now I can secure it after with the screws here. And we have all the parts underneath, including this spring there that was very difficult to put in position. Now for sure will not move because it's covered by this plate there. Okay, just gonna put now the system as well from the day. We have this wheel with this spring there. Okay, and just putting now, you see the day ring here, just putting very nicely in position. You see, I'm using my carbon tip tweezer there just to make sure I don't do any scratches on these parts. And again, we're putting the 2 screws here. That will maintain everything in position here, in the center here. Okay, and you remember on automatic winding, it was way too much play on this part here, like that was with this wheel that was engaging with the rotor. So I'm just gonna push the bush there, which is this brush bush there, which is in the center there. I'm just gonna use my stacking set there, just put it in position, pull it out position there, and I'm just gonna put a brand new one, because obviously the whole one was like it was worn to death. So yeah, it's could not do the job perfectly. So I'm just gonna press it in position again with the same tool. We have a micrometric thread on this tool there. Where you can adjust the height on these parts, on this jewel. And now I'm just gonna press it in position. There we go, perfect. Okay, we see which type of result we get when we finish to reassemble the automatic winding. But first, I'm gonna do a Lubetta treatment on the reversing wheel. Reversing wheel, actually, there is a lot of parts underneath, and the Lubetta will lubricate this reversing wheel, which is I'm drying now. I'm drying with a bit of air there, compressed air. I'm just drying the Lubetta out of this wheel. Perfect. And after that, we can reassemble the parts from the automatic winding. This is a reversing wheel which just lubricated, with aligning everything on a pivot point there. There we go. We have this wheel where we just change the bush there. Perfect. And we're just gonna put like this intermediate wheel there that go on a reversing wheel, and we're gonna align everything with this bridge back on top. You see, well, a lot of jewel actually on his caliber, which is quite nice. It's always a nice thing to have some jewels on a part. Obviously, you see, for example, on this brass bush there, they wear quite quickly, obviously, and the jewels, they are almost as hard to diamond, so they never wear basically. So that's why, obviously, if you see a watch we have a lot of jewels, it's always a good sign of quality, because these parts, this jewel will not wear. And as long as you do a proper maintenance, you oil them like I'm doing right now. You need to oil the jewels, because you don't want the metal parts, the pivot point, to be damaged. Obviously, he had some quality to the watch here. Just putting now, you see the automatic winding back on the caliber there, like we just reassemble. Just turning, if everything is turning, it looks good, everything is engaged. So we can secure that with the screws. Just putting the screw you see there on the top bridge. Perfect. And you see as well that there is 23 joules on this caliber, which is a good number of joules. Obviously, we'll have joules with like 17 joules, caliber with 17 joules, which is generally one of the lower. Obviously, this watch has a complication, which is automatic and the day date. So obviously, you can add some joules compared to a watch we only have 3 ends watch without complication. But yeah, this is quite nice to have some joules on a watch. I'll just do a quick clean just removing like some of the patina a bit. Just do you see a very gentle cleaning, polishing on the hand there. Obviously, a part of the hand is painted and the other part is kind of a gold color. So I just do a very quick polish on it just to make them as shiny as I can. I don't redo like the watch. I don't do. We can replate like the case, for example. We can replate hands if needed, but just keep it original. Obviously, the dial will stay with this patina on it, and yeah, everything need to tie together. You don't want to have a dial with a lot of patina and a case which is perfect. Just make the date and the day move, and when it move like that, this means it's midnight. So we're gonna align the hour hand and midnight to midnight, because you remember at the beginning when I change the hour, the date, the day and date change was at 5 o'clock. And this is not normal because you want to have the date and change at midnight. So that's what we're gonna do now. Just make sure everything is aligned. I like to have the change of date around midnight, 5 minutes, or with tolerance of 5 minutes before, 5 minutes after. We see which what we can get there. If I realign the hand, very gently it's coming. Yeah, we just have a jump like almost 3 minutes before midnight. So yeah, that's perfect. So just gonna finish to realign it perfectly at midnight. Just press it in position. Perfect. And now I'm gonna put the second hand. You remember that I was not working the caliber of the second hand, which is always an indicator to tell you if the caliber is working or not when it's not disassembled. So I'm just putting the second hand there. And you remember on this watch we have a hack. So it means when the crown is pulled, the second hand will not move. And you will see now at the end when I'm remove, we see the second hand which is already moving. Just removing the dust and particles that can be inside the case or on the dial. I'm just gonna vacuum as well inside the case, just to make sure there is no dust inside, which are trapped inside there. I did as well. I did a cleaning as well, ultrasonic cleaning as well on the case and the bracelet, and you can see like how shiny it is. Here we go. Now we have the caliber back inside the case. I can put back the winding stem. Just press it in position. We just need to press there. You see here. Perfect. We're gonna as well secure the caliber inside the case just to make sure the caliber and the dial doesn't move when your watch is moving inside, doesn't rattle. So we're gonna put this clamp here that will secure with some screw there the caliber inside the case, prevent from moving up and down inside the case there. So we put the first one. We're gonna put the second one here. Obviously, it's keep in position on both sides. Okay, and just gonna tighten the screws now, and we'll have a caliber which is nicely secured inside. We have the part there. You remember this wheel that was too much and play, and looks like perfect now. There is no play at all on this watch, on this part, sorry. Just gonna put there the rotor back in position. And we're gonna secure it as well there. You see with this part that will maintain the rotor not from coming out of the caliber. Perfect. And we're gonna put a nice screw there, just the last one here, just to maintain this automatic system in position, this rotor here. And obviously we're gonna see if everything is moving. Like you see, no play anymore here. That's perfect. Obviously, like I said, for the barrel, you need a tiny bit of play, but not a lot. Because obviously you want to have no friction between the parts. And I'm just checking there as well if the automatic winding is working. Just gonna put a brand new O-ring as well, just to make sure the watch stay even if it's not a diving watch. Obviously with the humidity, with maybe some water when you wash your hand or stuff like that, just want to make sure the watch is sealed as possible. So brand new O-ring there that we just greased, just to make sure again the greasing will help. It will make the waterproof a bit efficient. And now we can close this case back, the constellation sign. You see this gold piece there on a case back. I'm just gonna finish to tighten it there with my Orotech. And again, I'm working with Orotech as well. So I will put a link down below as well from some of the tools that I'm using. You can go as well as check. And for example, this tool there, which is very handy to open and close the watch, and which is customized as well by Orotech. I will put a link down below as well if you want to go see this tool from Orotech, which are fantastic quality. Yeah. Just putting back now the bracelet in position, just putting the spring there. There we go. Just gonna put the second one there. Again, I just did a quick clean in a ultrasonic machine on this bracelet there. Looks very good, very shiny, very nice. Perfect. You just put it in position there and look at this beauty there. Just gonna demagnetize the watch just to make sure we did not magnetize the watch during disassembly. And just to tell you as well that I have my own website. I will put a link down below on the top right corner and down below as well in the description. On my website, you can see I have some watches which are for sale, some watches that I restored in the channel. And as well, for example, like my Clazen there, this Omega. If you want to send me your watch for service, I would be very happy to work on your watch and to resolve like if there is any issue, or to just to do a standard service on your watch. And look at the result. The watch, the amplitude went up to 230. It will still go higher after running for 48 hours. If you did not subscribe as well, click like on the subscribe button. Click on the thumbs up as well if you like the video. That will help my my channel to be promoted. And thank you so much, guys, for helping me. So you see, and you look at this beauty on my hand there. I love this vintage watch from Omega, and now we have a nice watch which is running again. So I hope you like this video, and I see you for the next one. Bye bye.